This week on American Land Seller, we are joined by Amber Hurdle, a powerhouse businesswoman with a unique journey that fuels her passion for transforming businesses. From being a former teen mom to working with international celebrities and Fortune 100 companies, Amber's story is nothing short of inspiring. Amber is renowned as a talented and creative executive, recognized for her role in crafting a compelling internal public relations strategy for Gaylord Opryland Hotel during the Nashville flood. Her innovative campaigns not only lifted the spirits of 3,000 employees, but also played a pivotal role in achieving Opryland's new business objectives. After leading the internal rebrand following Marriott's acquisition of the iconic hotel, Amber launched her own consulting firm, serving industry giants like FedEx Ground, Lowe's Hotels, and Stella & Dot, as well as empowering small to medium-sized businesses to play big. As the author of The Bombshell Businesswoman and host of the Bombshell Business Podcast, Amber is not only a sought-after expert, but also an advocate for empowering and educating women. Recognized globally by global gurus and listed in Nashville Business Journal's Top 40 Under 40, Amber is a force to be reckoned with. Join us as we unveil the insights of a true velvet machete, a term affectionately given to Amber, and learn how she creates content-rich experiences that energize leaders to boldly shape their organization's culture, attract top talent, elevate employee engagement, and cultivate raving fans among customers. Now, with that being said, I do want to give a little bit of a note to this podcast. It has been a while since we have produced this one. We produced it earlier in the year, and then we rebranded in our office to American Legacy Land Company. During that process, we were a little overwhelmed and took some time to take a break. So a couple notes in this. Amber is officially a grandmother. She had a baby granddaughter a few months ago. And also, you'll hear about us talking about RE/MAX. RE/MAX Home Farm and Ranch was our company, and now we're American Legacy Land Company. So just a couple of notes there about what's been going on with us. So we hope you enjoy, and again, take something away from this episode.
Welcome to the American Land Seller Podcast with your host, Kobe Rickertson. Kobe is an accredited land consultant and multi-state land broker with American Legacy Land Company. Join us each week as we explore all things land. We bring you fresh insights and expert guests on sales, marketing, regulations, economics, and so much more. Visit www.americanlandseller.com and find us on one of your favorite podcast platforms.
Okay, Kobe and our special guests, let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the American Land Seller Podcast. We are with Amber Hurdle today from, you're now from Florida, aren't you, Amber?
I just moved from Nashville.
Good grief. That's kind of like a lateral move, though. Everybody I know is moving from like California or New York to Florida or Tennessee. So you're just kind of like, I don't think you gained anything by...
An ocean.
Okay.
So I'm originally from Orange County, California, but moving to more taxes did not sound appealing to me. So as somebody who is well versed in real estate, like Florida's basically Tennessee with an ocean. I mean, the landscapes in terms of like laws and culture and economics, and it's just kind of the same thing, only I can take my dog and go to the dog beach at whim, whereas that was a whole trip when I lived in Tennessee.
Yeah, so are you on the coast side or are you on the Gulf side?
I'm on the Gulf side, so I'm just below Sarasota.
Okay.
I'm 7 miles from the beach. I live on a pond, and the river's across the street from me, so I like water.
Yeah, I was going to say, you and my wife would get along perfectly because she absolutely, that's her goal, is to be on the water someday. So
Yeah.
I have her up above our office now, and she's content with that, but someday she's going to have a dock to sit on. I'm guarantee you that.
I'm sure she would love that. I would, that's for sure.
Yeah. So Amber, you are the guru among gurus when it comes to marketing. And so it's exciting to have you on today. That's kind of what I want to dig into, is just when we're, like I know you work with a lot of my brothers and sisters in the land world with their marketing and definitely work very tightly with RLI and those guys. Um, like what when you talk about an employer brand, right? That's something that I've heard you say many times on the stuff, many podcasts and stuff I've listened to. What does that exactly mean? What is an employer brand?
An employer brand is what employees and potential employees believe about your employee experience. It's just like if a personal brand is what people are saying about you when you're not in the room, an employer brand is what people are saying about working for the company. And so that dramatically drives applicant flow, and it also drives engagement. So let's take a kind of a step back in the real estate world, because if you're looking at my little brand loop that I often show, we have personal brands at the top, and then we have the employer brand. And when you have strong personal brands leading happy employees, you have a strong employer brand. And when you have happy employees, then you automatically get happy customers. But on the business brand side of things, if you're out there and you're spending all kinds of money on marketing and and doing your tech stack and all those things, and you're putting all this money into it, but you're not supporting the people who are actually delivering on your brand promise, then unless you just like doing all the work by yourself and hoping for the best with everybody else, like you have a leaky bucket. Like
Right.
you're gaining market share, and then your employees aren't necessarily upholding the experience that you want your customers to have, because they're not having a great experience as employees. So why do they care? And now you're wonky and you're impacting your business brand, kind of like I showed at National Land
Right.
Conference in my unfortunate situation in the opening. But from a real estate perspective, it's a little bit different. I would almost go backwards. So you're with Remax, right?
Correct.
Amazing brand, lots of good reviews. You have longevity in the market. People have a lot of good things to say about Remax, but then you have teams within Remax. So then that's kind of your employer brand, right? So that's everyone who's working on a land deal together, a real estate deal together, plus any admin support or like assistant type people. And I even extend that to your vendors. So whoever you routinely work with, if there's somebody you love closing with, if there's somebody that you often refer people to, for soil sciences or anything like that, that would all be that internal part of what happens behind the scenes. But then you as an agent have to differentiate yourself with your personal brand, because hey, I'm an agent for Remax doesn't tell me jack diddly doo doo. Hey, I'm a Remax agent in Nebraska, still not telling me anything. I'm a real estate agent who works for Remax, who's on the whoever whatever team, still doesn't tell me anything about you. Like you have to then like really pull out, like ALC still doesn't differentiate you. I mean, it's definitely something you want to share, but it's not different than another ALC who works for Remax. You know what I
Sure.
mean? So it all of those things have to be touched and considered. Unless you're just one person doing everything, then just work on your personal brand and rock on with that.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of get that. So it's almost setting, like the trendsetter. Like we're gonna have this is like our office specifically is like my thing is I'm the broker owner, so my thing is it starts with the sign, right? So if you can't keep your sign straight, and you
Mm.
can't start there,
Yeah.
then like that's one of my pet peeves. You drive around and you see like a 45-degree yard sign or something like that. To me, it's like, I think that's somebody that doesn't really care about their listing. So that's kind of
Right.
part of our, I guess, employer brand is that
Yep.
it starts with the sign, and so we want to make sure that we're intentionally putting those signs out perpendicular, and we take time and do that, and we explain to our clients why that's important to us marketing their property, and so maybe is that kind of what you're talking about? Is
Kobe, you're nailing
okay,
it. That is what I would call a service basic. And so you have your mission, you have your vision, you have your values, and those all help you make choices. And then you have your brand promise that you are telling your customers and potential customers, here's what you can expect. But how do you ensure that that brand promise actually happens? and that everyone is supporting that. Well, one of yours is keep your signs straight. That is no matter what, if you can remember these 5 things, then we will most likely have success in delivering on our brand promise. We're going to most likely have success actually getting results for our customers. And so whatever those things are for you need to be defined and routinely reminded. I mean, everybody needs to be reminded. It's not like okay, you're onboarded, go. Like, if that's such an important thing, then that's something that gets touched on all throughout team meetings. And that's something that you coach, counsel, and discipline on. That's something that you reward on, because it's important.
Yeah. And so, like, like when you're not so much policing that, but by instilling it, like you can use positive reinforcement. Like, we use our team kind of riffs on each other. So if you find my sign crooked or whatever, then, like like there's a penalty.
Memes everywhere in group chat.
That's right. You're welcome to post that on your social media page if you find one of mine crooked. But, so yeah. So that's kind of...
Watch out. Your team's going to go out and make all of your signs crooked just to get you.
I don't think they've thought about that, though, until you just told them. So great.
Hey, you have editing privileges on your end. I'm just saying.
Yeah, if I bleep that out, it's not because you're cussing. It's because you're giving good ideas to my guys. So talking about the employee experience, what are like 4 keys? You talk about 4 key phases with the employee experience. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Sure. So the attract phase is really the part that starts the minute somebody understands that they can come work for you. So I would say most real estate companies are constantly trying to recruit new agents. Well, again, tell me why your group, your brand versus the one up the street. And there's a lot of little nuances. I mean, we all know there's all kinds of different models, and certain companies offer a ton of support. Some companies offer a huge culture and lots of training, and other companies offer a bigger cut. And so how are you going to cut through that noise to attract the type of agents and any support staff that you ultimately desire? So in that phase, just like you have an ideal customer persona, you should have an ideal employee or an ideal agent persona. Like, these are the types of behaviors that we want in an agency. And that can be different like somebody who's selling luxury homes and like large square footage and, in opulent neighborhoods, that's going to be a whole different experience than recruiting somebody to sell recreational land.
Right.
Like, those are just different worlds. So we want to make sure that we understand who is it that we're trying to attract onto our team, and what's in it for them to come work for us. And so that's the attract phase. Once you have that person attracted, then you want to take them through the onboarding phase 2. And so onboarding is really about, fair, square, and legal, make sure that all the paperwork's done, but it's also about setting them up with the right tools and resources to get amped up quickly. So that's really where you lose a lot of people, whether you lose them within that 90 days or you lose them down the road because ultimately they just get frustrated. If you're selling one thing and then you're not delivering on it, that's a huge letdown. So just like a customer, you gain market share and then it's kind of like a wonk experience. The same thing can happen with your team. So you want to make sure that there's lots of check-ins. We have all kinds of tools and resources that we give to support that first 90 days. After the first 90 days, we're like, we're in it together. So now that phase 3 is the engage phase. That is really great communication. And that's different, again, depending on your ideal employee persona or your ideal agent persona. Depending on the age group, the demographic, it could be more apps and digital things. You might have like Voxer or WhatsApp or Telegraph or something like that. And if it's an more mature group of agents and staff members, then that might look more like, Google Chat, or just we're keeping it all via email, or maybe it's just text messaging or whatever that is. But in that phase, communication is hugely important. Recognition is hugely important. So inside setting up ways that you recognize people. And again, you want to base it on your culture. You want to make sure that you're recognizing people for not just closing the most number of deals or the largest volume in sales, but it's also about, are you upholding our culture from, our values all the way through those service standards? You want to reward the behavior that you want repeated. And then the other thing is professional development. So, I'm so honored and privileged to work in this industry when companies pull me in and we do leadership and personal branding to help the agents position themselves. That's that company investing in their agents. Right. And so we're, it's a privilege for us, but it's required now. Recognition and professional development are the two biggest drivers in 2023 for retention. So if you want to retain your agents and your staff, like focus on those two things. And of course, communication supports that. And then there's events and, activities and, depending on the size of the group, you might want to have, little subgroups, special interest groups or whatever that just help people feel like they're coming to work with people that genuinely care about them and see them for who they are, where they can show up authentically. So that's the engage phase. And then the offboarding phase is not, we just locked you out of your accounts and hand us our keys back. And, that's what a lot of people do. And it's like, sayonara. It's really about understanding how are we going to replace that person. If it's an agent, what are all the ramifications of that agent leaving, like whose deals are what and who's taking care of what. And if it's a support person, then who's taking on the heavy lifting while that person is gone? And then have you set up the process to start the attract phase again? And how are you divvying up the work behind the scenes? And do you have an alumni program? This is something when I talk about it, people are like, oh, I've never thought about that. And I'm like, okay. Like in hospitality, there's a lot of seasonal work, a lot of seasonal and on-call work. So staying in touch with those people while they're not really in your environment is going to help you reach, get them back the next time you need them versus going up the road for another 50 cents more an hour. But in your world, in the real estate world, we all know agents jump around. No. Right? So if you have a rock star agent and for whatever reason they made a choice to move, but you keep in touch with them and like, hey, here are our wins. And did you see Susie had a baby? And, John beat cancer and, those type of things. Even if it's like once a month or once a quarter. Once they start getting dissatisfied where they are and they're like, man, it really was great over there. You're staying in touch with them and you're getting your best back.
Yeah. No,
plus they can recruit for you too. Like I'm not working there anymore. Like I decided to step out because I'm going to change my career. But my friend just said, oh, she just became an agent. Oh, you need to talk to so-and-so. I just got their newsletter for former. Isn't it so nice that they even keep up with their former agents? No one does newsletters better than the real estate industry. Staying top of mind. Like you were my go-to, to really use that as an example, but you can do the same thing with former team members.
That's awesome. I've heard you talk about this before, and it's just every time I hear you, I am reminded of something that I need to maybe take a tweak on. So I appreciate you taking your time today. Let's take a quick break, and we will be The American Land Seller Podcast is brought to you in part by American Legacy Land Company. At American Legacy, our seasoned agents set us apart, providing unmatched service with a personal touch that goes beyond expectations. With a wealth of market knowledge and a diverse portfolio, including farms, ranches, development lands, and recreational properties, we forge lasting connections with clients through honesty, integrity, and transparency. Visit us at AmericanLegacyLandCo.com and find the land that defines your legacy. All right, we're back with Amber Hurdle. She is got a couple things going on. Before we get too far, Amber, what is all the stuff you offer out there in the world of I know you work with branding. I know you are patient enough to deal with us lugheads from the land world.
My lughead.
I like you. You did that a little bit with with some sign language. Like, I get that. Multi-communication is needed sometimes. But what has Amber got going on out there? I know you've got a podcast. You've got you're all over speaking, but you also have a full-time job,
I have two full-time jobs.
coaching and, yeah. So
Maybe three. I don't know. Well,
what,
there's
what,
a speaking arm, and that's, by and large, I go all over the world and I speak about the three areas of branding, and that's super fulfilling because it's one to many, and it's fun to watch the light bulbs go off in the audience, and then I do very selective coaching. I have other coaches, but for me, like honestly, I'm not the cheapest.
yeah,
And because my time is so limited because I'm on the road, so whoever gets me, I need to be sure that I can allot that time. And then we do consulting. So we've carved a lot of that off, and now we have Employer Brand Central. So there's two ways that you can work with us there. The first way is consulting. We come in, we do all the things, we can redo a careers website. And I know a lot of that in this particular industry isn't as relevant, but we're about to launch the Hub, which is a subscription. It's at this point, the launch, for Founding 50, it's only $495 a month. So you get access to like tools and templates. So all the onboarding, everything we talked about in those four areas, we just have an absurd number of resources that we actually say, okay, for your company where you are, this is what you need. And then every month we prep you for the things that are happening in that month. So if it's mental health, sometimes mental health awareness month, interchangeable there, depending on the day.
yeah.
Then a couple months in advance or the month before, we'll prep you with like, here's what to put out to your team so that you're prepared. And then we have monthly office hours where you can access us, ask questions, all that kind of stuff. So we're about to launch that, but in your world, like what a lot of them love is for me or one of my team members to come in and really work on personal branding. So we use the tool How to Fascinate. It's the Fascination Advantage Assessment is another way that we refer to it, and it just helps you very quickly, 6 minutes or less, understand how you stand out. So the founder, Sally Hogshead, New York Times bestselling author, Speaker Hall of Famer. I'm blessed that she's a mentor of mine. I've been with her. I'm one of the OGs. And, she says different is better than better. And that's true because especially as an agent, there's always somebody who makes more than you, who closes more deals than you, who has a wider reach than you, who might be more attractive than you, more, smarter than you. There's always somebody that's more whatever of you. You can't be a commodity. You really have to understand why me? So if I could pick on my daughter, Brittany Hurdle, a little bit, okay, so she's ALC. Well, a lot of people are ALC. She's fourth generation in the family. Of course, Jeff is an ALC, and Hardy Hurdle, rest in peace, the greatest, such an amazing man. He was in land, and his dad was in land. So that's something, that she can differentiate herself and be like, hey, I did not get on the bandwagon of, real estate went up and I decided I was going to become an agent. No, she has shown that she has both the professional side, but also this place that's like, this is Thanksgiving dinner. This is all we talk about. And then of course, all of her other things too, the specializations and her own history. Follow your breadcrumbs to find what makes you different. And the Fascinate assessment, just to pull it back full circle, is a quick way to get you to not only understand that, but how you interact in the team. And then also, okay, well, if I'm pitching to somebody, if I'm showing a piece of land and I am high in passion, which is the language of relationship, and I'm high in innovation, which is the language of change, but my potential buyer is trust, the language of consistency. Well, I'm not that great at that. So I need to be aware of that. Like I still show up as who I am with, my warm emotional connection and like, well, what if we look at it this way? That's still who I am, but I'm going to use language that helps them understand like, well, this is how it's been done before. So it's highly likely that's how it's going to work again. Sure. I have been doing this for 30 years. I am fourth generation, showing the consistency and the longevity that might not come naturally to me, but matters to that customer. So when you have the 7 advantages kind of as a little toolkit, it's super easy to identify where you fit in, the value that you offer, as well as the language that your customers speak.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, like, being in this business, of course, I have talked to several coaches, right? And
y'all love your professional development in real estate.
Well, like, I have like an extremely organized spouse, so she, she is one that I am not organized. So I'm the broker, but she's constantly trying to track my paperwork down, and so, but I am a personality, and so, when you talk about that, but what I think is absolutely fascinating with what you guys are doing is it's not really coaching. I mean, I don't need somebody to call me on Tuesday to make sure that I got my 1, 2s, and 3s done today. I need somebody to help me figure out what am I to my clients, right?
Right.
I mean, what is it that I offer?
Or
Because
you ain't getting any paperwork done because there are no deals.
right, yeah, absolutely. And so the toolkit that you're talking about is it's just incredible because of the fact that it really does help you go through a series of processes that bring you back around to this is what I actually offer, which I think when you get to that point, you're overcoming a lot of obstacles in the sense of you can not care a little bit about if I'm not getting this particular market share. That's not my market share, right? Because now
the niches.
yeah. So I guess kudos to you and you guys, your team over there, because that's an incredible program that you have put together. I'm personally not in it because I have my own fair share of issues we're working through right now before we can get to something like that. But no, it's just incredible. And then again, like you partner that in with the business brand, which nobody's talking about. I mean, other than, like, oh, I'm Remax, like that's not, like your employer brand, I mean, is what I'm saying. And so very, very unique program that you guys have going on there. So let's
We gotta
just
be weird.
that's what people need that though, and so just being able to go out there and just help people, like I said, figure that out. Yeah. I think once you figure out who you are and what you're going after, that's a huge step that a lot of people can't figure out. How much money do you talk about your pricing? How much money do I waste in advertising going down the wrong lane? I really wish that I probably in the very beginning, because when I started, and I'm talking a lot here, but I'll come to a point. When I first started, I never sold real estate, and then I was the broker, right? So I started out as a broker and started my own company, and all I had experience with was as an investor. So that was kind of an interesting beginning. If I'd had somebody like you in the very beginning that I could just be like, bring you guys in, pay you your, that small amount of money realistically, it would have been a game changer for me because I would have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on where I advertised.
Yeah, because it's if your brand's not on game, then you don't really have the direction. But
Absolutely.
I mean, it's like, okay, well, we work with a website developer and they do this whole discovery process, and then they ask you 1,000 questions and you answer it that one day, and then you're like, okay, I'm hiring a social media person, and then you go through that whole process, and then but that was a different day, and you're thinking about things a little bit differently. Now you have your brand going out into the world, and it's not interconnected. When you do a brand guide, and we have, full day brand guide experience because we just knock it out. We do not do it over time. I'm like, bring your Ritalin, your protein bars, and extra coffee, and we're sitting down in this room and we're hammering this out. So when you have that and then you hand it over and you say, this is our brand, stay tight to the knitting, stay close to who we say we are. And then you have something to evaluate. Like, is our social media speaking to our ideal customer? Is it talking about our key differentiators? Are we celebrating our team members publicly? Are we pulling back the curtain a little bit and showing what it's like to do business with us? And then Kobe, you mentioned that your wife is super organized and you're like, I'm just personality. There's a book that I would encourage anyone in your type of situation to read, or if you have a business partner and maybe you're like the yin to each other's yang, it's called Rocket Fuel. It's part of the EOS system, which is the entrepreneurial operating system. And you don't have to read all the books, just read Rocket Fuel. It has this concept, which I would put into the employer branding kind of bucket, the behind the scenes, how this all gets done. And there's a visionary, that's you and me, my friend. And then I'm totally losing my. I coach on this all the time. You have the visionary, and then you have the integrator. Sorry, just getting too many words in my head. And so you're the visionary. You're the person who's real high level. You're thinking 10 years ahead. You're thinking of the big picture. You're really pulling in the strategic relationships with that big personality of yours. And you really have no business doing your paperwork anyways, because it's highly likely you're going to get 80% of the way there, and then you're going to drop the ball, not get it across the finish line, and it's Groundhog Day every day. Right?
True.
So you need the integrator to take the ball into the end zone and make sure that happens every time, so you can focus on what you do best and they focus on getting it done, the day-to-day operations, your big picture. And so, with the type of tools that we use, we help people decide like who's what, so that we're all working together. And instead of being like, oh my gosh, you're a killjoy, you're always trying to make me like do this and I have to do these stupid spreadsheets, instead you're like, thank you for having my back. I would have dropped that ball. Like my Amy, my operations manager, she is the polar opposite of me. We obviously get along quite well and we love each other to death. We're like super close friends. But if I didn't have that understanding of how much I needed her, she would be the most annoying person ever, and I would for sure drive her crazy. But we see that we need each other, because without my craziness, she doesn't have a job, and without her, like, nothing would get done.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's something that you have to identify that fairly quickly. I've gotten a lot better about explaining to people, like, look, I don't care about any of what you're thinking I should care about, because that's why you're here, and so how do we get to the point where I don't think of you as the stapler guy from Office Space?
Yeah.
And how do we get to the point where you don't think about me as Evel Knievel? Like, how can we respect each other in this space and have a working relationship that's enjoyable for both of us? So
that's why psychoanalytic tools are so important. And I know in real estate, DISC is really, big.
Yeah.
And I mean, listen, I love them all. I think any of them are helpful. But DISC doesn't really, from a psychoanalytic tool hierarchy, it doesn't tell really anything on not so much on an emotional level. This is bias. I'm biased. But it also, from a behavioral perspective, like, what are the behaviors? Like, okay, so I'm high D, I'm bossy, got it. But what does that look like day to day? And then how does that complement like a C or an S? And DISC gets into that, but just not in the same, like, it's just not as sexy, I guess, as,
Right.
When you're somebody who you're constantly promoting. I would rather use a tool that shows me how to promote and pull in the team and get along with my colleagues and appreciate each other for what we bring to the table without being annoyed that you're different than me, and celebrate that you're different from me, because we're puzzle pieces that fit together.
Right. Now, well, I think this is a great time to take one more break. We got one more segment. You got that in you, Amber? Or are you ready to give up on us?
No. I'm here for my land friends.
All right. Well, we appreciate you taking the time. The American Land Seller Podcast is brought to you in part by LandHub.com. Join us today and experience the expertise of LandHub's land marketing professionals. Whether you're buying or selling, let us show you the way in the ever-evolving world of land transactions. Visit LandHub.com and discover what the future of land marketing looks like. LandHub.com, where your land journey begins. All right, we're back here with Amber Hurdle. And Amber, we were talking during the break about, like on this podcast, this is my example, that I have on my competition all the time, right? And we talk about all kinds of fun stuff when they're on here. And it's been a real positive benefit from my business. And I remember, like, back one of the first times I heard you on anything, you had kind of been an advocate for, let's all get along. I guess I'm paraphrasing, or maybe I'm not even getting it right, but you're a huge advocate for, let's be friends with our competition. Let's realize that that helps our branding. It doesn't hurt us. And so talk just a little bit about that, why that's important. To especially the land, realtors don't want to do that. That is just like not in their nature. And so why is that important to our business, building our business to get along with everybody and to network?
Well, truly to have an abundance mindset, first of all, there's enough for everybody. There truly, truly is. And so just thinking about every time you take on a piece of business, it's not really cut out for you and how much time that takes. And usually it goes sideways, or it's just maybe it's more work because it's not in your lane. And so newer agents, of course, need to probably do a lot more different types of deals as they figure out, well, what's my lane. But
Right.
if you'll befriend your competition, as an example, I got tagged on Facebook the other day. There was a meeting planner who I happen to know already, and I don't remember who tagged me. I think it was an audience member or something, said, "Oh, you should talk to Amber Hurdle." Well, it's about time management. Now, do I cover that some-ish like in my leadership programs? Yeah, but do I have a keynote on that? No, I'm a branding person. So
Right.
I endorsed a friend. And so I could have taken that for myself. I knew the person. I could have created a keynote around it and perhaps gotten that piece of business. But is that the best use of my time? Or is it better to then scratch a colleague's back who, when they get something that's more in my line, they might, that law of what is it, reciprocity. That's
Right.
the energy that you want to have. And then besides that, even if you are selling the exact same thing, showing the abundance energy, and I don't want to like come off as woo woo, but there's a difference when you can call somebody up and be like, okay, here, I'm stuck in this deal. It's about to go sideways. It's going to fall apart. I've got 4 months that I've been working on this. I've had, all these people, blah, blah, blah. If you were in my situation, what would you do? Now, I can be worried that they're going to scoop it out from underneath me, or I can, because I've built this relationship with them, they're probably going to give me really sage advice. They've done something before. And so now they're giving me tools and resources versus the deal falling apart. And so, I mean, that's
Yeah.
a couple examples right there. We could go on and on. But even, one reason why I love the Realtors Land Institute, just like the vacation rental industry, is y'all are in it together. And so, especially the ALCs are really good. Y'all are really good at referring business or doing deals together. Maybe somebody that you've worked with before, somebody who trusts you, wants to do a deal in a state where you're not licensed, but you know another person there. And so you can work that deal together, and then everybody's happy, the customer's happy, and you're learning things from different ways of doing things. So,
Right.
I mean, make more money, reduce friction, only work on the kind of stuff that you want, get along with industry peers, learn best practices, have an abundance mindset. I can go on, but we could start there.
Just the first seven
Yeah.
of 100 reasons. But no, I absolutely agree with you. And I think, like coming at things with a positive approach, when it comes to like in our industry, like one of the reasons why my wife and I started our company was because of a lack of quality, service.
Mm.
Like I had a $700,000 property that I had for sale with somebody that I couldn't figure out where to find it online, and so it, went to that agent. I have no idea about anything in the industry. And what I got from her is, oh, well, it's on the MLS, which if you're not in our industry, you don't even know what that is, right? The multiple listing service.
Yeah.
And so when I dug down into it and I had to do my own research on it, I found that all that happened with that particular MLS was it just went out to all the other agents
That's
and
right.
said, hey, this is available.
Right.
Right. And so there was no website online where it was being advertised. She walked across the street from the building, took a picture of the building and put it on the MLS, not the interior where we had like, an elaborate penthouse style apartment and all this other stuff. And so I'm like, well, then I started interviewing other agents in the area. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do for me? Because I'm about ready to fire this lady, and all of them were pretty similar. I had to go all the way to Omaha before I found somebody that was like, well, like we got to have, NOI, ROI, all this other stuff. They were talking a different language too. So again, I think that going through to change the industry, we've been very positive in the sense of we celebrate our wins of our competition. But we also use public shaming in the sense of this is the way it ought to be.
Yeah.
And so
I
when
see that
you're
all over social media with y'all.
Yeah. And so when you're interviewing agents, and that's, talking about not making very many friends, when we started to go onto our social media pages and say, when you're interviewing, and I highly recommend you interview, so these are questions I would ask, and there's so
And
it's,
that's in the attract phase. So
Yep.
you have your standard interview questions and then behavioral questions and then in the onboarding it's like, okay, well maybe you didn't flesh out your listing as much at your last place, but here is the protocol and the checklist that has to be done in order to and so when you're dealing with free agents 1099, you have to be careful because they're allowed to do things their way, otherwise they're an employee. So like it's a little bit of a dance in your world of these are the expectations, this is what success looks like, and I think that you can as the broker drive that. But there's nothing more frustrating for a land agent to go look at a piece that's on the MLS and there's no mention of soils or topo or like there's nothing. It's just like a picture with grass and trees on it. And you're like, really? What do I tell my potential customer? I would love to sell this for you. I'd love to move this piece for you. But come on, can you complete your listing? And especially in the past couple of years, right? Everybody who's anybody, they could be they sell small houses. They just got started 6 weeks ago and everybody jumped into the game and everyone thought they could be a land agent too. And it's like the real land agents are like, come on, wonk wonk. And that's a differentiator. Yeah. So it's not just about like, am I a great land agent, but it's, are we a good group? Are we a good company of land experts? And so when you're attracting those people in your collateral, in your talent acquisition, marketing materials, you need to say like, we do things the right way. If you are the type of agent who wants to A, B, C, D, then you're a fit for us. If your personality is this, that, and the other, like don't talk about how great you are. Talk about how great they are. Invite them in and then talk about how great you are.
Right. And everybody has their pluses and minuses.
Sure.
That's the big thing is I can find a positive in every agent out there. Some of them it's a little tougher, but that's my goal is what is your plus, so, but yeah, it's fascinating though, that you take that approach though. And you were one of the first people that I ever heard of in this industry that was kind of championing the get along, like make it a point to wake up in the morning and figure out how am I going to win this guy over? Like he doesn't like me. So, going back to employer brands, like what is the biggest mistake people make with like not only maybe employer branding, but just branding in general?
Forgetting the WIFM. I mean, y'all are salespeople. Like sales 101 is what's in it for me. Like if I choose you, if I come off my whole cold hard cash that I've worked my patootie off to be able to give to you, then what's in it for me? And so you've got to lead with that. But if you don't know who you're selling to or who you're recruiting, then how do you even speak to their WIFM? And if it's just, I see so much of this in real estate agents in the Fascinate system. A lot of you are high in prestige. And I mean, I've worked with the New York Association of Realtors and, really bigger groups with lots of people. And it's like, I'm certified in this and I have this designation and I did this and I did that. And it's like, whatever, that's great. And eventually that does matter, because especially if you're somebody who responds to prestige, responds to the language of excellence. But really, what does that mean for me? So if you're an ALC, what does that mean for me? So some people then spell it out and like, it's the highest, the only this number of percentage. Okay, great. Still, all I'm hearing about is you. How does this impact me? If you say, because I took the time in the years and have the, the portfolio to support getting my accredited land certification, I have a network of other highly professional people that I can tap into to sell your property, or to find off market, not on the MLS, because I'm in that club where I get to have that. Sell what it means to me, whether that's your business brand, your personal brand, or your employer brand.
Right. Well, and that's That is one of the things that you bring up a very good point. I mean, like that, I have won listings on it when I say, hey, I got a guy I know in California that sold a bar restaurant before, and I could, like I'm just going to call him and find out, like what are some stumbling blocks we're going to have, and how can we overcome some, or I can call Gary Hubble out of Colorado and say, Gary, you sell crazy crap all the time. Like, how can how can we sell a bar for $800,000 in a town of 500 people, and that kind of stuff. So, no, it's incredibly thought provoking. Like I'm a huge fan of yours. And I appreciate you taking the time today to hang out with me for a little bit. How can folks, like I know you have a podcast out there. How do they find you, and what do you think is the best of Amber for the people?
Well, you can always go to amberhurdle.com, and then that will offshoot. We're in the middle of redesigning that. So I'm the shoe cobbler kid that has no shoes. I'm branding everybody else, and mine's abysmal. But I am, we're working on it. Oh my gosh, that was my morning this morning.
So true.
Right?
Yeah.
You're like, I don't have the piece of property that I want, but all my customers do. So there's that, but I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. If you do request me, make sure that you put in there like, hey, I'm Land Fam, just so that I know, because I get, if y'all saw the volume I get in everyday stuff, it's crazy. But if you are, let me back up. I have a podcast that sees and supports strong women for who they are and who they can become. Yep. That does not mean that we don't have bombshell boys. So it's called the Bombshell Business Podcast. I redefine the term bombshell to mean bold, brave, unwaveringly confident woman in business. The funny thing is, and actually I have a lot in the land industry, we have a lot of male listeners because it's gender agnostic. Like, nobody cares. It's definitely, we're going to have a little lipstick and some high heels on it. We are going to talk about specifically some of the challenges that women specifically face, but the baseline advice is universal. And what I've found a lot of my male listeners say is it gets me the information that I want, but from a perspective that I need, because I need to think about it through the lens of my female colleagues, my female employees, my wife, my daughter, the person that I'm mentoring, because we do business a little bit differently. There's from a personal branding perspective, sometimes it can be more challenging or less challenging for women because, and I'm a little bit of a diatribe here, bear with me. Women chemically in our brains do not have the same, without getting too much into the science, but you can listen to other episodes of mine. We're not wired to be as confident as men. Now, obviously, when I was born, there was a complication at birth and my give-a-darn was busted. So I'm not in that category necessarily, but by and large.
That's a birth defect?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Clearly. Like,
I thought I was born.
I do not need external validation, even as a branding and PR person. So, but that's because I understand my brand so much. And I'm just like, if you don't want it, okay, fine, go. That's great. There's billions of people in the world. So women need a little more support in the confidence perspective. But what we're better at, again, we're making generalizations, statistically speaking, we're better at building relationship. Right. So as I mentioned from stage, and I know we were talking about how do you get a hold of me, but just to throw this in, I mentioned from stage, oh, look, a squirrel. See, I told you I'm like you, Kobe.
Yeah, we're very alike. I don't know if this podcast will ever end, but it'll sure be fun.
We're just going to live stream for the next week together. Just pop in when you can. But I mentioned from stage, and I've talked about this a lot in the past year, is pre-COVID, marketing was very transactional. It was like, here's what you want, here's the price, like, let's close the deal. Now, post-pandemic, because we all went through this huge experience together, decision making from a purchasing or really even like, do I want to work for you or not, it really requires an emotional connection. And so women typically are better at that. So how do you get a hold of me? You can listen to the Bombshell Business Podcast, and we're going to be talking about those kind of things where if you're a man, you're like, oh crap, I'm losing market share. What am I doing wrong? You're not doing anything wrong. You're being you. So let's figure out how you can start looking at things from a different perspective. Right. So maybe you can start pulling in some of those things in a natural way to you to be successful.
Right. And then you're with kind of what I get from when I'm listening to you a lot of times is when I start to think about like, why didn't I get that, or like why am I not in the right spot to be, like I think it's more so of thinking about this from the standpoint of, is that something that I really wanted, and so that was always been my problem was, I would get so overwhelmed by getting beat or not even getting a shot. That's what really ticked me off was I didn't even get a shot at that. And then in reality, it's like, but did I really want that? I mean, like, that's just stupid. So
when you're clear on your brand and what you want to attract, then as you project that brand into the world, you'll naturally attract the right people and opportunities to you because it's very, very clear. And then you'll turn away or turn off the people and the opportunities that aren't for you. And so, I'm very big, if you are, I know a lot of people in the land industry are people of faith. And so if you are a Christian, then, you can rest on the word that says, ask and you will receive. And, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, then you could tell a mountain to move. And I strongly believe that. I mean, I got knocked up at 16 years old and y'all see where Brittany's at now. Like, I guess we did okay. And because we both had that mindset. And if you're not in that world and you're more, into manifesting, and it's the same thing, it's just different language. It's about like setting your intention and knowing what it is that you want and going after that and trusting that if a door is closed, it's because that would have taken you down a path that was not in your best interest. So trust God, trust the universe, whatever that is, trust your highest self, your inner knowing, whatever path you want to go down. Just know that things don't happen to you, they happen for you.
Amen. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, AmberHurdle.com. That's how you find out how to get a hold of her on there. And definitely check out her podcast, Bombshell Business
Podcast.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bombshell Business Podcast. So I have
you get the
listened to a
Bombshell
few
Businesswoman,
episodes.
the book, if you want a little more business acumen in your life and the backstory of me and Brittany. That's a doozy.
Yeah, that's a fun story, and we'll have to convince Brittany to come on here one of these days.
Yeah.
I know she's doing great things out in Colorado, and maybe when she her whirlwind of all the excitement that she's had, and like most important being the ALC, but I think she's maybe having a baby too. So you're gonna beat me to grandparenthood. So. But thanks again.
The world should be scared that the Murphys and the Hurdles have bred, but probably.
I'm trying to figure out, like how do you get into that outfit? Like they're not really in my area, but I might submit my application because they're taking over the world.
That's a good time.
Even if the rest of them don't want to, I'm pretty sure Brittany does. So.
No, they do. I know Jake does too. It's good times. Me and Michelle just sit behind the scenes and go, okay.
Yeah. No. What a great couple of families, though. All right. Well, that's all we have for today. Even though I could talk to you all afternoon, but that's all we have for today. And I will see everyone
as we wrap up another episode of the American Land Seller Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Visit www.americanlandseller.com and find us on one of your favorite podcast platforms. If you would be so kind and you enjoyed today's insights, please like, subscribe, rate, follow, and review us on whatever app you are listening or watching on. Connect with us on social media for updates. Until next week, Kobe wishes you success in your land endeavors. God bless you and have a great week.
The American Land Seller Podcast is brought to you in part by LandHub.com. At LandHub, we're revolutionizing land transactions by effectively connecting buyers and sellers. Say goodbye to the struggle of finding or marketing land for sale. We understand the power of new media marketing, leveraging social media, and targeted ads to bring together the ideal audience for all property types. LandHub.com, where your land journey begins. And American Legacy Land Company. At American Legacy, we redefined excellence in real estate. Explore our top quality offerings featuring farms, ranches, recreational properties, and even development projects spanning 10 Midwest states. Visit us at AmericanLegacyLandCo.com for a premium experience that aligns with your land ownership goals. Whether you're looking at buying or selling, we're dedicated to helping you find the land that defines your legacy.